I'm so excited to chat with Shirley Joy Joffe on the Awaken Feminine podcast. Shirley is a master healer, teacher, and guide, and is the creator of the Joyful Abundance Blueprint, where she uses her signature approach to empower spiritually conscious female entrepreneurs to unlock and amplify their natural intuitive powers and talents so they can unapologetically create wealth and abundance with ease, joy, and flow, all on their own terms. And I know she has so much love and wisdom to share with us. She's joining me from Adelaide in Australia. Welcome to the show, Shirley.
Thank you, Kaki. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited for our conversation. And
Oh,
I
me too.
didn't say this, but Shirley was one of the fellow co-authors for Prosperity Code. So yeah,
Mm.
and we've chatted quite a bit
Yeah, yeah,
since the book has
excellent.
launched. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited for our conversation today. But
Mm.
before we dive into our conversation, I always love to ask my guests this question, and that is, what is your definition of an awakened feminine?
Oh, awakened feminine. That's a really interesting question. I think that an awakened feminine is one that doesn't actually attach to a definition, that actually looks at the energy. The awakened feminine is not purely a feminine, it is that collaboration of a movement and a flow between the energies, because it's often described in a way of gender, but it's not. It's the difference of receiving and giving. So the awakened feminine, I believe, can harmonize the two and incorporate everything that it is to be in connection with humanity, the universe, the planet, nature, and everything that she can embody, or they can embody, because awakened feminine, male or female gender, doesn't really matter.
Mm, that's such a beautiful definition. Thank you for sharing. I was getting like the tingles going as you were talking. So, Shirley, what I'd like to do first is really start off with getting you to talk a bit more about who you are and why you do what you do. Before we go into our discussion, we wanted to talk about journeys today. So, if you
Mm.
don't mind just sharing with us a bit more about who you are and why you do what you do, that'd be amazing.
Okay. So, who am I? Well, that's a very deep question. I'm not sure I can encapsulate that in a few words. I would say, if I had to encapsulate it in a few words, I'm very much an explorer, an experimenter, a deep healer of whatever I come across, and a compassionate listener as well. So I do this work. I thought this is quite interesting, because I'd always gone to the point of, I do this work as a mission to help people unhook themselves and get out of control. And then I realized that it's not that. It's actually so that I go deeper into myself, because then we change the world just by being the spark that is truly us. And the mission, the rest of it, kind of just happens along the way. And the reason I came back to that was because when we're always focusing externally, and some people are made to focus externally, I'm not. I'm actually made to focus introspectively. So when I focus externally, I actually take myself out of my true design, my true being, and the mission as it would be wouldn't actually happen, because that's not how it's built to happen.
Mm.
So I do this because it's my being. There isn't a reason for it. I just am.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask you about you just this interesting point I want to just touch on before we jump into the journey conversation. You're saying
Mm.
some people focus like their focus is externally, but whilst yours is internally. How would someone know which like whether they are someone that needs to focus externally or
Yeah.
internally? Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of that information in human design and gene keys. Gene keys is essentially an internal journey, but with the human design map and the way I do soul optimization, actually taking people through the imprinted map and then the evolution of the map, there are just little keys. So if you're a right angle or a left angle, will designate whether you are meant to start from within and then it flows out, or whether you are meant to observe the outside and then bring it in. So that's
Mm.
the difference basic difference between right and left. And then there's also the profiles. So from 1 to 6, it's based on the 𝐒𝐡𝐢𝐫𝐥𝐞𝐲. And the first 1, 2, 3 are very internal, interpersonal transformations. And then the 4, 5, 6 are meant to focus more on outside. And we all have a combination, you know, the maps that I look at. I love discussing this because people think this is it. This is my profile. This is what I've got. We all have all of the energies, but it's just which ones are consistent and are the primary ones in our life flow in this particular incarnation. But we can actually tap in and go into different spaces. So, you know, if someone was to ask, how do I know specifically? I think the basic one, are you right or left angle? And then that will give you a little bit of information as to whether you are meant to be going inside and then sharing, or observing and bringing in.
Thank you for sharing that. So, yeah, it's interesting. It at the end of the day, it's all about then really internal, because even the person observing the outside is still needing to bring that in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But then some people, you know, some people like the 5s and the 5s particularly, if you're a 5 profile, you are meant to be leading. You are meant to be out there and guiding. If you're a projector, you guide, but you do it in a very different way. So, yeah, depending on the number, will actually designate, are you actually meant to be out there? I'm a 1-3. I'm a lower end. So my journey is very internal and very intrapersonal. However, my gift is bringing all of those reflections, bringing that contemplation, collecting it, going very deep, and then sharing it and guiding people in the way that they are.
I'm a 4-6, so I'm like,
yeah. So you know, you've got that gift of networking, of connecting. Hence, I mean, you're doing podcasts. I would never do a podcast. It's just not part of a natural design for me.
Yeah,
I love being interviewed, but I wouldn't do the other end particularly. And the number 6 is really living your life and having people see it. So you are sharing as a role model from experience. And often people with the 6th line, it takes them most of their life till like their 30s, 40s, 50s even, before they feel settled, because actually what they're sitting in is a 3 line for the first half of their life, which is the experimentation, the trial and error, you know, exploring. Does this work for me? No, it doesn't. Damn it. Which is mine. That's mine. But then when you're a 6th line, you step into a role model energy, and then the trick for you is to stay connected, because often the 6th line can get detached. They can go into objective observation mode while they're living. So keeping that connection is part of the work, as it were.
So interesting. Thank you for sharing. So for anyone that wants to find out a bit more about, you know, whether they need to really go internally and then external, or the other way around, like human design, you know, maybe book a session with Shirley.
Yeah,
so she'll go through everything with you.
Totally. I do 3 levels of readings. So there is a nice basic one that's very affordable for people if they want to know a bit more.
Amazing. Okay, so let's move on to what we wanted to talk about today, about journeys. So we want to talk about why journeys are important and how they are evolving. Now, I want to ask you why it's important for us to talk about this today.
Yeah, so I've been going on my own little journey, and 𝐒𝐡𝐢𝐫𝐥𝐞𝐲, we've spoken several times, and we're both going on a very unusual internal journey where things are shifting, as well as the world shifting, as well as energies shifting. But a lot of people are actually doing their own journeying, as it were. And often, for me particularly, why I wanted to talk about this is when we are communicating with people, when we're seeing people, when we know people, there is often an assumption that they are who they are. When they do the kind of work that they do, that is the work that they do. And it's not often, especially in the higher echelons, discussed the journey people are going on as they're doing it. And sometimes there's that period of going within and seeing, does this, it's not that it doesn't resonate anymore. Have I moved through it already? Is there now something else? So there was never anything wrong with it, but it was the stage, the phase of life that we were going through. And I think people are very quick to go, oh, that was such a mistake. That old stuff that I did. Oh my God, no. Oh, and kind of almost put a block on it, forgetting that that's actually brought you to this point, that's brought you to deeper contemplation, that's brought you to more awakening. If you haven't had the things before you, you are not the person you are now. And being that I do a lot of healing and healing work, that's my main thing. Often people say, well, why are you always stuck looking at the past? And there's a tendency for people to come along and say, I didn't like this experience. Can we just almost rub it out? And I want to heal from all my old past drama and experiences. And I think the first step to that is the acknowledgement, the acceptance, and the forgiveness that comes with it. And not even forgiving it because there was something wrong with it, but just forgiving ourselves for even looking at that need to get rid of it, almost as if it needs to be put in a book and put on a shelf and never looked at again.
I love everything you talked about. I've got the tingles going on, and it's so true because as I'm going through, as you know, I'm going through my shifts and awakening and my little journey at the moment, and it is really looking at all the things in the past and accepting it for what it is and not what it isn't, and just releasing that. And not being so like, if I listened to this, then this wouldn't have happened and all those things. But it is exactly what you're saying. All the things that has happened makes us who we are.
And I think the thing that I find the most difficult and challenging for people is when that past hasn't been great. And then, of course, the tendency is I wish it had never happened. Obviously, I wish I could move past it. I wish I could just forget. And that's the tricky thing. When we can get to a point of healing from that and really being in that acceptance of it happened. And when we say it's created who we are today, we're not saying that it was brought upon us or it was foisted upon us, because a lot of people do that, will work through that and go, oh yeah, but it was a lesson. And for someone who's experienced some real, major abuse, trauma experiences, that can be really quite harsh for them. And I think the way to go with that is with compassion, with gentleness, and with allowing them to express and go through all of the rage, all of the shame, all of the spectrum of things that they need to go through to actually shift it, because the emotion has to shift before we can then realize that it wasn't brought to us to have a gift, but there is a gift in there.
I love the way that you are, how you're explaining it, because I do talk about, the universe or God, whatever your beliefs are, gives us lessons, but when, as you was talking about, or if it's something that's really bad that happened, saying it's a lesson is not actually helpful. And I've never thought of it in that way. So that's really,
I think it depends on where you are on that's that journey of healing it.
Mm.
When you have come out the other end, then you yourself can look back and go, okay, I can learn something from this. Do I wish it happened differently? Absolutely. It would have been so much easier. And can I still learn something from this? Can I shift this so that my present is better? And I used to talk a lot. This is what I'm talking about, journey. My perspectives have shifted a lot. I used to always talk about future and manifesting and that kind of thing, until I realized when I was working with several people, because I do timeline therapy as well as one of the modalities, that so many people are actually not living in their body in the present at all. They're so busy manifesting and visualizing, and they're jumping to their future self. And the idea of that is actually you jump in there and then you bring the emotions back. But many people aren't doing that. They're going over there and they're just staying there. And then everything that's going on in the here and now kind of passes them by. And we have nothing apart from the present in our physical body. That's it. That's all we've got. What you and I speaking now, there's no point in my thinking about taking my kids to kickboxing later on. What I have is you and me right now, and this beautiful moment, and to experience everything that it is.
Yeah, that is so beautiful, the way that you've put it. And yes, I mean, the whole thing about people jumping like ahead, and that's all they're focusing on, and they're just not even paying attention to what is now. Can you talk a bit more about that? Maybe unpack it a bit more so people understand, like, okay, what happens when people are jumping further, like, and there is like, well, are they actually getting where they are, or they're just like thinking about it all the time, that they're just missing all the things that are going around them?
It really does depend on how they do it, because there are some beautiful techniques and ways of actually creating and designing a future. But what you're actually doing is you're designing what you are now in order for that path to continue. And how would you know that you're not living in the present? Well, there are some really, really obvious symptoms actually that I noticed as I was working with people. One of them was a sense of dizziness that can come around. That if you're standing up and suddenly you swirl, it may be because your now is not there. The other thing which really, really came to me was when they're doing meditation, they can't actually sit still to meditate. So the people who are always moving. Now, there is part of, again, design that calls for movement. So there are certain keys that are movement, but it depends on where your focus is. So, for example, even if you're doing, say, a walk along the beach, which I love to do, and I know you love to do, that walk along the beach, your present is within you. You are bringing your present into the walk. Whereas other people will be on the walk and they're thinking and creating, and they think it's the inspiration or the intuition, but what it is, they're not actually being present. Sometimes. Other symptoms which I've noticed is just a basic inability to see the beauty that is around them. So they're constantly looking to change things. So again, sometimes you just are where you are. That doesn't mean that you are settling, that you are compromising. And that's the other thing. People think that, well, if I'm really, really comfortable and happy where I am, I'm in my comfort zone. Oh my God. And this has been a real trend. You're in your comfort zone, therefore you are never going to get anywhere. You need to step out. You need to be uncomfortable. You need to have discomfort. What we need to be doing is constantly looking at growth, but again, not from the dissatisfaction of where we are. And that's where I think a lot of people have trouble with gratitude, the gratitude practices. Because there's a sense of, if I say that I'm happy in my 1-bedroom apartment, the universe isn't going to deliver anything else.
Yeah. I think the symptoms that you describe probably describe most of the population. Me included sometimes.
Well, I think there's been a lot of damage because the self-help industry, the personal development, and I've been in this industry. I actually looked at the first event that I ever did was in the year 2003. So I've been in this industry for a while and I've ridden a lot of the trends. But there is a trend of quantum leaping, of bringing up people's dissatisfaction and discomfort. And oftentimes it is for the sake of selling. Unfortunately, it is. There is an agenda. There is an underlying agenda. Another one of my beautiful gifts is actually seeing those agendas, which can actually be quite upsetting. Because, I would really love to take a lot of things at face value. I'd love to think that everyone's, operating from compassion, but there are often underlying agendas.
Yeah. And I totally agree, resonate with that, because I haven't been in the industry for as long as you have. I started my personal development journey, about 7 years ago, and really just being like in the coaching space in the last 3 years. But like, it's funny, as I've grown, is like I've opened my eyes to see who are the heart-led coaches or healers, and who are the ones that are there just to make a few bucks from you so that they can, get rich, because they're just, going, oh, you need to do this, this, and this. So it's really interesting, and it makes it really difficult, because when you're someone that is heart-led, and then you see those people, like those people that aren't heart-led, and you're like, it gives the people that are heart-led a bad rep, and then it's like, oh, the whole coaching or healing industry is like just shit, and it does, like, it is off-putting. It's off-putting, and it's sad, because there's so many of us who just want to help people because that's what we love to do.
Exactly.
And it's not a one size fits all. That's the other thing. I'm very much like, well, this works for me, might not necessarily work for you, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't work, even if it doesn't work for you. So it's, it makes me sad when I see when people get a bit funny about it, but I also understand, because they probably had a bad experience. So then they're like, well, they get disillusioned. So it's just this like cycle of like, where do we go from here? Yeah.
And again, the way that the tapestry of the universe, the way it looks, even those people who aren't heart-led, who are making a quick buck, as it were, they're there to awaken us. So they're a gift.
Yeah.
But it's just up to us to see that. It's up to us to look at that and go, okay, this is, and for some people it works brilliantly, even though they are operating from that space. For myself, this is just for me, as my 1-3, I follow my path. And I once I start to look right and left in terms of that, that can take me out of the inner contemplation. Whereas others are able to do. I can't do that. It brings me into sort of bitterness, into resentment, into sort of, oh, this is horrible. Why? How could they be doing that? And sometimes there is just an underlying piece of truth that flashes up, that opens itself to me, and it's something that then I'll go on Facebook and I'll just put it out there. I can be quite cutting with it, but most of the time, one of my mission statements is that I would just love to see more kindness in the world. And it was very basic, such a basic thing, but for me that would work beautifully.
Yes. When I first started my podcast, I always ended with remember to spread love, joy, and kindness wherever you go. I've stopped doing that. I don't know why, but it's just
well, I know why, because that message doesn't go far. I'll tell you why. because people are still addicted to drama. So when I do something on social which is quite hard hitting, I can be very, very, very straight down the line. One of my gates is 51, which is the gate of shock. So I am here to actually shock, but from a place of alignment, of congruency. And whenever I do anything like that, it gets so much engagement. And it was funny because I was like, oh, this is really cool. And my husband, he said, yeah, because why is it great? Because people are now moaning about stuff. They've got drama. When there is kindness, when there is joy, there's nothing for them. There's no, they haven't worked out how to get that excited, agitated energy from love, from joy, from bliss, from kindness. And it is there. It is there. But it's just something that's not very common. And for them, they don't realize it, that they can actually have those same amazing feelings that they get. It's like an addiction. You can be addicted to the drama, or you can choose to be addicted to, if you choose addiction. For me, it's a case of one of my underlying themes in one of my gates is addiction. So I'm like, okay, so I know that this is something that I need to work through. I'd rather work through it in the higher frequency.
Yeah.
And be addicted to love, and be addicted to fun, and be addicted to happiness, and be addicted to kindness.
I mean, who doesn't want to be addicted to fun, love, and kindness? I mean, I would choose that over like addicted to drama any day, right?
Yeah. But you know, that's a big healing when I've worked with people, and I did it for myself, that people actually have healing around this, because they're constantly bringing in drama into their lives, and it's because they don't feel alive without it. That's their way of feeling alive.
Yeah, bringing in drama. I think we've become a society where, you know, complaining and whinging is the norm, whereas, you know, we want to have the people that bring the solutions, that, you know, go, oh well, this isn't working in society, what can we do about it? You know, I had a beautiful conversation with a few friends the other night on Facebook Live, and we were just talking about, we need to be the way showers, we need to be the light. And like you say, you're that spark that, you know, to make people aware that, oh, I need to think about this, or this can be done a different way. I mean, just you talking before about, you know, lessons and forgiveness and all that, I was like, oh, never thought about it that way. Okay, let's, you know, shift it. So these conversations, I really think, are so important for people to listen to, because sometimes it's just that, you know, one person, and you're like, oh, you kind of sometimes, like, you know, when you listen to something, you know it, you're like, oh, I've listened to this 10,000 times, but it just takes that one person to go, oh, she said it in a way that makes me understand.
Yeah. And if you actually drill down, if I were to take out all my personal developments and self-development books and just lay them all out, I can guarantee you there is maybe 5 or 6 themes, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's your lot. You know, I say 5 or 6. I don't know how many, but there'll be a core set of themes, and they are just described in lots of different ways. And it, like you, exactly as you've said, it can just take a particular way for someone to describe it to you, or, you know, or it's not even then, it's when you are ready to hear it as well. You can hear exactly. I listen to things on my phone all the time, and there are some speakers that I listen to that I've got their things over and over, and it's funny how every time it's like, oh, I didn't hear that last time.
Yes.
I wasn't ready. I was not ready to hear it last time, or at least not hear it in that way. So I think it's really important for many people to describe those themes in many ways, so that more people can actually realize them.
Yes. Yeah.
Or remember.
Yes. And yeah,
there's space for everybody. And I think that's what's the society forgets, that there is space for everybody.
Yes. Because what I find is like there's so much of that, scarcity mindset, the competitiveness, I need to one up you, when really if we all just come from our own, our own heart, our own soul, and just know that, we can stand side by side and just do this together, how much more powerful it is than, trying to be better and get on top of each other when we're all standing working towards the same thing, which is making the world a better place, really. Yeah, how beautiful
that's
be.
That's kind of like, that's the trick of the darkness.
Yeah.
Separation is the trick of the darkness.
Yeah.
And when we realize that, we can go back into unity.
Yeah. Oop. Oh, cool. You just froze there. So I was like, oh, I've got you. I wanted to ask you, you were talking about comfort zones before and how and there's a lot of talk about you need to get out of your comfort zone, whereas you were talking more about like, is about growth and not pushing someone out of their comfort zone when they are not, when I don't know what, like when I guess it's not even ready, it's when they are coming from a place of I need to be fixed. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a bit more? Because I think there's a lot of coaches or, in the personal development world where they like, you just need to get out of your comfort zone. Right. And I talk about getting out of your comfort zone, but not from a place where I think I need to be fixed, is because I want to, get to that next level and because I want to grow. So, yeah, can you unpack that a bit more? Like, what have you seen as like themes for people that keep going, I need to get out of my comfort zone? And yeah, what can we do about it?
It often just comes from a deep-seated dissatisfaction of where they are. When you are completely accepting, I say the same words because it's all the same thing. When you are accepting and loving and honoring yourself, when you have assimilated all the pieces of you, then all that's left is to grow. It is a fact of life. You either grow or you die. We're moving always. So this kind of, like you're talking about, being fixed, you're not broken. And when people come and they finally realize that I'm great just as I am, I'm perfect as I am here and now, and I would like more. But not from a, oh my God, if I didn't get it, I'd be really awfully upset, and suddenly my life isn't worth it if I don't get that. So it's coming from that place of growing, giving, contributing to society, being part of society, rather than to my next goal, to my next 10K month, to my next this. That part of things, I think it doesn't take people out of their comfort zone. It gets them to a point where they will never be satisfied. Because when you get to your 10K month, what do you want? You want your 20K month. When you get to your 20K month, what do you want? You want your 50K month. When you get to your 50K month, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. Same, forgetting the business world, even in the corporates. I'm looking at the next bar of the ladder. And there is so much disapproval when someone says, you know what, I really love what I'm doing and I'm happy to do it. And I'm just growing in my skill, in my efficiency, in my depth of it. I remember when I was in corporate, and I was a trainer originally, and, learning and development, but primarily I started as a trainer, and I would do either soft skills or IT or those sort of things. And there was this insinuation that I should always be looking for the managerial position. Now, I am meant to be a manager. I'm a great manager. But at some point I was just like, you know what? I really just love to train. Just let me be. Let me hone my craft. Let me get really, really good at this. Let me enjoy it without thinking of like, what's the next thing?
Yes. It's bringing that back to being present, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
being in our bodies and not thinking so far ahead that we're not actually being aware of all the things that are happening around us.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's like, even if you're talking about being in your body, the body itself, if you do not train, if you do not step out of that, do some weights, do for a walk or something, your body will disintegrate. So your soul is going to disintegrate if you do absolutely nothing. So that's not, when I'm saying to people, stay, about the comfort zone, it's not sitting there vegetating, and just basically taking root.
why not? Why can't I be a tree?
Well, trees are not rooted unless they're dead and they're just sitting there, because even trees are always growing.
Yes.
Oh dear. Yes. So it's really funny. But when you're doing those, if you're like on the weights machines, you got your weights. Are you thinking of the next 3 sets? No, you're thinking of the flipping 30 kg weight that you're trying to lift up. And if you don't, your body will hurt itself. Yeah. You'll hurt yourself. So be present. Yeah. Stay with what you're doing at the moment. And you are working towards something. But it's that sort of long and short-term view. You can jump out and jump in. So I was talking about the now. It's okay to go forwards when you remember to bring yourself back.
Yeah. Can we talk a bit about how to bring yourself back? Because I know right now we're both kind of going through our little journeys. And I think, I don't know about you, this is my experience, but when you're going on your journey, you're always like, when am I getting out of this? So you're always like thinking ahead, right?
When is it going to end?
I know. It's like, I am sick of this already. So it's like, can we talk about maybe some things, some tips that you have for our audience where, yes, we are thinking about the future, but well, how do we ground back in? Like, how do we bring those things from our future back in? Or even like, let's not even talk about the future. How do we just like ground ourselves in our presence? Yeah.
Well, there are so many ways, but
your favorites.
My favorites, actually, one of my favorites is timeline, because this is the one that has the biggest effect, and it's the most adaptable for people. So what I usually say to people is, if you close your eyes, you can try this if you want, Kaki.
Okay.
Close your eyes. Give it a go. And if I was to say to you, where in your body or not in your body is now for you? Okay. And where is the past? And where is the future? Okay. So staying with those, stay where you are. Stay where. Keep your hand up. Yeah. Open your eyes. Look at where now is for you.
Yep.
Yeah. So all you can do is, while you're there, I'm choosing to bring my now inside.
I'm choosing to bring my now inside.
And then breathe it in. You can let the other hand drop.
It's so settling.
Just very simple. Very simple. Just see, where are you? Where is your now? And that's a very basic timeline. And what you can do with that, because I love playing with time. Time is actually one of my very fun things to play with. You were saying your past is there and your future is there. We can stretch it. We can bring it forwards. We can take the whole timeline and swivel it and place it in front of us if we want a more observing view. But all of those things, you're noticing, where is my now? Now, sometimes it pops out because there's something that we don't really want to experience. And that's when the healing comes in. So what is it? What is it? It may be something very, very simple. It might be that your body's in pain. And people, I remember I had years of fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, pains. My now was never inside. My now was always somewhere out there, because it was just too painful to be actually in the body. So I learned to take myself out. So when we understand why that may be, then we can have different ways of dealing with it so that we can bring in the present.
Yeah, thank you for that. That little exercise was powerful. Like I could just feel it when I brought it in. I was like, it was like, I feel so much better.
Yeah, it's very, very simple. It's one of my favorites. And then grounding, there's so many practices. You can Google will tell you, like, my favorite grounding is literally just going into the ocean. That's my grounding.
Yeah.
So, if you're looking for something to do, then that's something to do. But this is, you can do it at your desk while you're just sitting there.
Yeah. I just tell my body to ground, really. I just like close my eyes and I'm just like, just, ground. And I tell my body to like show me a sign when I'm grounded, and I can feel it. I can feel the energy grounding down. So yeah.
Beautiful.
So yeah, just things like that. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, you were saying, as you were talking about perfection, like, you are perfect as you are now. There's this question popped up, and I've been thinking about this. It's come up a few times, not whilst I was talking to you, but like in whilst I was journaling or like, just in meditation. What is your thoughts about the term perfectly imperfect? I have a problem with it. I don't know why. As you were talking, it was like, just ask her. Ask her the question. So maybe that's where it's preparing me.
I'm not so keen about. I think the essence of it, the thought behind it is okay. But I don't think that there is a perfect or imperfect. It's just like, I don't know. It's perfectly imperfect is an odd term for me. It's peculiar. It's kind of an oxymoron because perfection doesn't exist and imperfection doesn't exist. You're basically putting two non-existent things together just because you want to make people feel better.
Yeah.
But they could just feel better without that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that helped. No particular deep thoughts around that.
No, it was just like a question that just popped up as you were talking about, you are perfect where you are. So, and I've just, and that has kind of popped in a few times. Because you can't
be anywhere else. Where else are you going to be? You can't change it. Until we learn to teleport, we are where we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we can physically change dimension, physically change, realities, which, the human race has not got to that point yet. Maybe you'll never get there. Who knows? You are where you are. So it kind of seems like what's the point of even thinking about it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think my thing is that, we are perfect exactly where we are in this moment. So there is no imperfection in that way. And perfect is, is so subjective, right? So, so that's where my little beef came from one morning when I had it come through. I'm like, I don't like this term. And I used to use it.
Well, I use, you said it, I'm shifting a lot of the terminology because I realize that there is so many attaching definitions around words that I'm starting to sort of unpack those. So whenever I come across a word like that, I'll say, you know what, creator, God, universe, can you download me the energy of that word in its purest form? Because if we're talking about you are perfect where you are as you are, because you are a soul, and there's no such thing as a wrong soul.
Yes.
But, oh no, you've got a faulty one. There you go. We'll give it back. No.
I love it. Yes, I totally agree with that. And that's so funny. Gosh, it's like, sorry, faulty.
Send it back.
Send it back.
You know, when people do their past lessons and they do like past lives and that kind of thing, it's like some people have come and said, well, I don't like that. So, but that's what came up. But can we change it? So, it just is you. There's nothing to change.
Yes. And which brings me to talk about acceptance, which you talked about previously, and really about honoring yourself, the acceptance, the forgiveness. And I mean, right now, as we are going through our own journey, like little journey of awakening and like change and transition, there is a need for a lot of acceptance and forgiveness for ourselves. Can you unpack that a bit more about what are some things that people can do to accept or forgive, and maybe talk about more about the concept of acceptance and forgiveness?
Yeah, so I talk about acceptance, allowance, and forgiveness. And again, the reason I talk about acceptance and allowance in conjunction is often when people talk about acceptance, it's concrete, it's finished, it's concluded. What it is more of an allowance of everything you be is fine and okay, just as it is. So, you know, if you're really klutzy, which, you know, I have a tendency to be, and let's say, you know, you spill a glass of water all over your computer, and you start to, some people will actually start to berate themselves. How stupid, how could you do that? You're so clumsy, Those are the things that disappear when you're in acceptance. So something may happen, and instead of having that inner dialogue, which actually most people don't even realize is going on, by the way, you know, it's not like you can hear it. Most people, it's just going on in the background, and it's eroding their self-esteem slowly, without them even knowing. When you can be in that space of, oh, well, and I'm making light of it, but it's with everything. So, you know, I look down at my body at, you know, I'll be 50 next year, and things are sagging and things are, you know, in the places they didn't used to be. I'd love them to be somewhere different. And at the same time as there are things I can do, but also loving where I am and accepting that. And I think for most people is going to be the easiest way to understand this, is accepting every single bit, whatever it is. How you can do that, it's a journey. There's lots of ways. I would say for people who find it difficult to look at themselves, Louise Hay's mirror work works beautifully. It's really hard, or can be.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to look at ourselves in the eyes. It's very penetrating. And there are others where that's quite easy to do, and they maybe need to do it by touch or by journaling, by writing. So whichever way is the entry point to change that perspective is a great way. So depending on different people, I'll give them different exercises to do. And just as I say with habit changing and things, sometimes you don't actually need to do anything. You just decide that it's done.
Yeah.
Just decide. So acceptance and allowance. And then the forgiveness part just comes in with the allowance. So I might listen back to a podcast or something and go, oh my God, what dribble. You were talking absolute dribble. And I'll be like, well, that's where I was at the time. And it's not that I need to forgive myself for anything. That's the thing. I think people think that when you're doing forgiveness, it's because you did something wrong. No, you're forgiving the fact that you're human. You were human, so it's fine. Forgive for that. And you're doing it for you so that you can move forwards without staying in the past and, you know, again, doing the berating, doing the I shouldn't have, I mustn't have, I shouldn't have done this, etc. And again, so many practices for that. One of my favorites is Ho'oponopono, simple and easy. And then in theta healing, when I do sessions with people, if it comes up, there's a beautiful theta healing practice for forgiveness that works in the plane of the Godhead. So it's in Creator's plane. And that one's very, very useful for when you are ready to confront something that's very challenging.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, something that, as you were talking about forgiveness, is also like, for me, like as you were talking, I was like, it's also forgiving yourself for judging that past version of yourself, isn't it?
Exactly. Spot on. Yeah, forgiving yourself for judging that past.
Yeah.
And that past version maybe 3 seconds ago.
Yeah. Yes. We're like shifting so quickly right now. It is probably sometimes it is like the one that's 3 seconds ago. I'm just looking at the time, Shirley, and I can talk to you all day. We can talk to each other for ages. But I wanted to ask you right now, like in the space that you are with your journey, like what's something that's the biggest learning that you've had so far on this particular part of your journey?
So far, the biggest learning is the letting go and surrender, because I realized I'm going on this journey. I was still holding on tight to everything that was, to keep a semblance of certainty in my life. And it hasn't been until I've just said, you know what? I'm just going to let it all flop out, let the pieces fall where they may, and surrender to whatever is happening.
Yeah. I think we're in the same space. That's also...
Sometimes you'll do this journey, and I mean, I don't know about you, but you're still trying to hold on to everything.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, is that comfort, because that's all you knew. But now it's like, Creator, God, universe is like, exactly. Let it all go.
Let it go. And the certainty comes from knowing that whatever happens, Creator, universe, you've got you. So,
Yeah, and just knowing that you are always safe and supported, even though it feels as scary as...
Yeah. It's the same when I did the tree climb about a month ago. That trust that the harness is going to hold you, that you can leap and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
You can step off that ledge. You're going to be fine.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much, Shirley. This has been a wonderful and fun conversation. I wanted to ask you one last question before we wrap up. What's currently setting your soul on fire?
So currently I'm doing lots of deep exploration with human design. So I'm on the next phase of the journey there, because I already guide people, but it's like a big wormhole that just keeps going. So that's really setting my soul on fire. And then along with Gene Keys, which is a 6-month journey of opening up the heart. So very, very, very internal. But I realized that I had been protecting my heart for all these years. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to see what happens if I can open that up?
Things we do to ourselves.
It's the same, I suppose, as when I used to be in chemistry class and that kind of thing. What would happen if I mix this and this? Don't do it, but I want to see what happens.
As long as the science class doesn't explode, then we're good, right?
No, I did that too. Yeah, I was the mistress of explosions. I did chemistry at university, and it was because I loved explosions. I think I should have gone into firework making or something. Although now that wouldn't be very good, but it was fun then.
I love it. Thank you so much for this conversation, Shirley. It's been wonderful. If people want to find out more about you, how they can work with you, where's the best place to go?
Best place is to go on Facebook, Shirley Joy Joffe, or my website, shirleyjoffe.com. You can just message me on there. I say both of them just in case Facebook suddenly implodes. Who knows?
Yes, who knows?
knows? But yeah, you can find me on my website as well.
Amazing. I'll have all your details in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you once again, my dear friend.
Thank you. It was lovely, lovely having this conversation with you.